Hi friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Leo also wants to say hi. I talked to some of you on the phone, my students, and you are saying you see Leo. So he will be making his appearance here and there, not every video, but he really wants to say hi. Say hi, Leo. Say hi. Oh, say hi. Okay, so he's going to leave now so that we can start our video. You are here because you are going to be reading with me during Read Aloud. We are going to read chapter 5 of our new chapter book, Charlotte's Web. I did talk to some of my students on the phone, and some of you are aware that we're starting a new chapter, and some of you don't know. So I just want to clarify that we are done with the one and only Ivan. We are no longer reading this book. This book is done. So just want to clarify that. We are on chapter 5 on the new chapter book, Charlotte's Web. So if you missed chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, you need to go rewatch them, go back on Parent Square, or just go back to I read chapter 2. Miss Maldonado read chapter 1. Miss Alonso read chapter 3. Miss Maldonado read chapter 4, and I'm reading chapter 5, and then we go on with the pattern like that. So make sure that you're watching everyone's channel, my channel, Miss Maldonado's, and Miss Alonso's. Unless anything else changes, we will let you know. So today we're going to read chapter 5. We have been doing different options like textual evidence, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. This was textual evidence right here, where good readers always infer using textual evidence, and you made a textual evidence with Miss Maldonado based on Fern, and then you did a textual evidence with myself, making an inference about the character, textual evidence. This makes me think motivation. So you created this chart hopefully in your reader's workshop. So we have that option. We also are doing summaries after every chapter. We still haven't decided if we're going to do them for every chapter, but so far we are going to begin doing that. It's going to help you with your writing, your retelling, beginning, middle, and end skills of each chapter. And so this was chapter 2, summary. And then we also are looking for unknown words, juicy words. These are some of the juicy words from previous chapters. This is chapter 3 summary, chapter 4 summary, and now we're moving on to chapter 5. So I'm going to begin. I'm going to stop sharing. I would like to ask you to take out your reader's workshop so that you can title today's work. Today's work is going to be March 27th. So you're watching this video on March 27th. So you would write that in your notebook, 3-27-20. And we are going to read chapter 5 of Charlotte's Web. Now there is a lot of juicy vocabulary that I would like to go over with you, and that way you can keep an ear out. You can listen for them while I'm reading. This is chapter 5, and these are some of the juicy words that you'll be hearing. So one word is clashers. I say, you say clashers, and clashers means to make a loud noise. So in this case, Templeton was clashing his teeth. You'll hear that in the story. Another juicy word that you'll be listening to or looking out for is the word stirred. I say, you say stirred. And stirred means moving about, just moving about. In the book, in this case, animals were still. Weather vane, I say, you say weather vane. And this is what a weather vane looks like. It has north, south, west, and east. And basically the wind moves it. It's really common on a farm, which is where the plot and the setting is taking place in Charlotte's Web, the book Charlotte's Web, because Wilbur and Fern and every other character lives on a farm. So a weather vane is found mostly on farms. Another juicy word, I say, you say, objectionable. Objectionable. Objectionable means to be unpleasant. So that means you're kind of being unfair, you're not being pleasant. And in this case, Wilbur did not mean to bother anyone. I say, you say, meekly. Meekly. Meekly means to do something gently. And I say, you say, blundered. Blundered. Blundered means a careless mistake. The fly carelessly flew into the web. So look out for that word in the chapter. And last word, I say, you say, wits. Wits. It's very sharp and intelligent, okay? So that means if somebody has the wits, that means that they're very sharp and intelligent. So I'm going to stop sharing. These are some words that you are going to be listening for. All right, so let's get started. Chapter 5, and if there's any pictures, I'll obviously share with you. The night seemed long. Wilbur's stomach was empty and his mind was full. And when your stomach is empty and your mind is full, it's always hard to sleep. A dozen times during the night, Wilbur woke and stared into the blackness, listening to the sounds and trying to figure out what time it was. A barn is never perfectly quiet. Even at midnight, there is usually something stirring. Now remember, the word stirring means to move. There's animals moving about. There's movement. Even at midnight, there's usually something stirring. The first time he woke up, he heard Templeton gnawing a hole in a grain bin. Templeton's teeth scraped loudly against the wood and made quite a racket. That crazy rat, thought Wilbur. Why does he have to stay up all night grinding his clashers and destroying people's property? Why can't he go to sleep like any decent animal? The second time Wilbur woke, he heard the goose turning on her nest and chuckling to herself. What time is it? Whispered Wilbur to the goose. Probably about 11:30, said the goose. Why aren't you asleep, Wilbur? Too many things on my mind, said Wilbur. Well, said the goose, that's not my trouble. I have nothing at all on my mind, but I have too many things under my behind. Have you ever tried to sleep while sitting on 8 eggs? Now think about it. A goose or any other bird, when they lay eggs, they have to sit on their eggs. So her trouble is different than Wilbur's trouble. She doesn't have a lot on her mind, but she has to take care of her 8 eggs. No, replied Wilbur. I suppose it is uncomfortable. How long does it take a goose egg to hatch? Approximately 30 days all told, answered the goose. But I cheat a little. On warm afternoons, I just pull a little straw over the eggs and go out for a walk. Wilbur yawned and went back to sleep. In his dreams, he heard again the voice saying, I'll be a friend to you. Go to sleep, you'll see me in the morning. About half an hour before dawn, Wilbur woke and listened. The barn was still dark. The sheep lay motionless. Even the goose was quiet. Overhead on the main floor, nothing stirred. The cows were resting. The horses dozed. Templeton had quit work and gone off where on an errand. The only sound was a slight scraping noise from the rooftop, where the weather vane swung back and forth. Remember the weather vane? With the north, south, east, west, and east. The wind makes it move. So the only sound was a slight scraping noise from the rooftop where the weather vane swung back and forth. Wilbur loved the barn when it was like this, calm and quiet, waiting for light. Day is almost here, he thought. Through a small window, a faint gleam appeared. One by one, the stars went out. Wilbur could see the goose a few feet away. She sat with head tucked under a wing. Then he could see the sheep and the lambs. The sky lightened. Oh, beautiful day, it is here at last. Today I shall find my friend. So this whole time, Wilbur's thinking, who's this person speaking to me? He hears this voice saying, I'll be your friend. You'll meet me in the morning. So the morning's here. He's super excited. He's looking everywhere. Wilbur looked everywhere. He searched his pen thoroughly. He examined the window ledge, stared up at the ceiling, but he saw nothing new. Finally, he decided he would have to speak up. He hated to break the lovely stillness of dawn by using his voice, but he couldn't think of any other way to locate the mysterious new friend who was nowhere to be seen. So Wilbur cleared his throat. Attention, please, he said in a loud, firm voice. Will the party who addressed me at bedtime last night kindly make himself or herself known by giving an appropriate sign or signal? Wilbur paused and listened. All the other animals lifted their heads and stared at him. Wilbur blushed, but he was determined to get in touch with his unknown friend. Attention, please, he said. I will repeat the message. Will the party who addressed me at bedtime last night kindly speak up? Please tell me where you are if you are my friend. The sheep looked at each other in disgust. Stop your nonsense, Wilbur, said the oldest sheep. If you have a new friend here, you are probably disturbing his rest, and the quickest way to spoil a friendship is to wake somebody up in the morning before he is ready. How can you be sure your friend is an early riser? I beg everyone's pardon, whispered Wilbur. I didn't mean to be objectionable. Remember, objectionable means to be unpleasant, so he wasn't trying to be unpleasant. He lay down meekly in the manure facing the door. He did not know it, but his friend was very near, and the old sheep was right. The friend was still asleep. Soon Lurvy appeared with slops for breakfast. Wilbur rushed out, ate everything in a hurry, and licked the trough. The sheep moved off down the lane. The gander waddled along behind them, pulling grass, and then, just as Wilbur was settling down for his morning nap, he heard again the thin voice that had addressed him in the night before. Salutations, said the voice. Wilbur jumped to his feet. What? He cried. Salutations, repeated the voice. What are they, and where are you? Screamed Wilbur. Please, please, tell me, where are you? And what are salutations? Salutations are greetings, said the voice. When I say salutations, it's just my fancy way of saying hello or good morning. Actually, it's a silly expression, and I am surprised that I used it at all. As for my whereabouts, that's easy. Look up in the corner of the doorway. Here I am. Look, I'm waving. Can you make an inference? What is Wilbur's new friend if they're up in the corner of his doorway? At last, Wilbur saw the creature that had spoken to him in a kindly way. Stretched across the upper part of the doorway was a big spider web, and hanging from the top of the web, head down, was a large gray spider. And I have a picture, an illustration for you. This is Wilbur. This is the corner of his doorway, and there is a large spider web, and there's a spider hanging there. So if you guessed it, it is an insect, and it's specifically a spider. She was about the size of a gumdrop. She had 8 legs, and she was waving one of them at Wilbur in a friendly greeting. See me now? She asked. Oh, yes, indeed, said Wilbur. Yes, indeed. How are you? Good morning. Salutations. Very pleased to meet you. What is your name, please? May I have your name? My name, said the spider, is Charlotte. Charlotte what? Asked Wilbur eagerly. Charlotte A. Cavatica, but just call me Charlotte. I think you're beautiful, said Wilbur. Well, I am pretty, replied Charlotte. There's no denying that. Almost all spiders are rather nice looking. I'm not as flashy as some, but I'll do. I wish I could see you, Wilbur, as clearly as you can see me. Why do you think that Charlotte the spider can't see Wilbur clearly? Remember, Wilbur's a pig and he has how many eyes? Now think about an insect, specifically a spider. How many eyes do they have? So do you think Charlotte can really see him clearly? Why can't you? Asked the pig. I'm right here. Yes, but I'm nearsighted, replied Charlotte. I've always been dreadfully nearsighted. It's good in some ways, not so good in others. Watch me wrap up his fly, this fly. A fly that had been crawling along Wilbur's trough had flown up and blundered into the lower part of Charlotte's web and was tangled in the sticky threads. The fly was beating its wings furiously, trying to break loose and free itself. First, said Charlotte, I dive at him. I dive at him. She plunged headfirst toward the fly. As she dropped, a tiny silken thread unwound from her rear end. I'll show you a quick illustration. This is Charlotte wrapping up the fly that was caught in her spider web. Next, I wrap him up. She grabbed the fly, threw a few jets of silk around it, and rolled it over and over, wrapping it so that it couldn't move. Wilbur watched in horror. He couldn't hardly believe what he was seeing. And although he detested flies, he was so sorry for this one. There, said Charlotte. Now I knock him out so he'll be more comfortable. She bit the fly. He can't feel a thing now, she remarked. He'll make a perfect breakfast for me. You mean you eat flies? Gasped Wilbur. Certainly, flies, bugs, grasshoppers, choice beetles, moths, butterflies, tasty cockroaches, gnats. Gnats are the small little flies that fly around your fruit. Midges, daddy long-legged spiders, centipedes, mosquitoes, crickets, anything that is careless enough to get caught in my web. I have to live, don't I? Why, yes, of course, said Wilbur. Do they taste good? Delicious, of course. I don't really eat them. I drink them. I drink their blood. I love blood, said Charlotte, and her pleasant thin voice grew even thinner and more pleasant. Don't say that, groaned Wilbur. Please don't say things like that. Why not? It's true, and I have to say what is true. I'm not entirely happy about my diet of flies and bugs, but it's the way I'm made. A spider has to pick up a living somehow or other, and I happen to be a trapper. I just naturally build a web and trap flies and other insects. My mother was a trapper before me. Her mother was a trapper before her. All our family have been trappers. Way back for thousands and thousands of years, we spiders have been laying for flies and bugs. It's a miserable inheritance, said Wilbur gloomily. So inheritance is something that is passed on through generations. So whatever was passed on you from your parents was passed on from their parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. So he was sad because his new friend was so bloodthirsty. Yes, it is, agreed Charlotte, but I can't help it. I don't know how the first spider in the early days of the world happened to think up this fancy idea of spinning in a web, but she did, and it was clever of her too. And since then, all of us spiders have had to work the same trick. It's not a bad pitch on the whole. It's cruel, replied Wilbur, who did not intend to be argued out of his position. Well, you can't talk, said Charlotte. You have your meals brought to you in a pail. Nobody feeds me. I have to get my own living. I live by my wits. I have to be sharp and clever, lest I go hungry. I have to think things out, catch what I can, take what comes, and it just so happens, my friend, that what comes is flies and insects and bugs. And furthermore, said Charlotte, shaking one of her legs, do you realize that if I didn't catch bugs and eat them, bugs would increase and multiply and get so numerous that they'd destroy the earth, wipe out everything? Really, said Wilbur? I wouldn't want that to happen. Perhaps your web is a good thing after all. The goose had been listening to this conversation and chuckling to herself. There are a lot of things Wilbur doesn't know about life, she thought. He's really a very innocent little pig. He doesn't even know what's going to happen to him around Christmas time. He has no idea that Mr. Zuckerman and Lurvy are plotting to kill him. And the goose raised herself a bit and poked her eggs a little further under her so that they would receive the full heat from her body and soft feathers. Charlotte stood quietly over the fly, preparing to eat. Wilbur laid down and closed his eyes. He was tired from his wakeful night and from the excitement of meeting someone for the first time. A breeze brought him the smell of clover and the sweet-smelling world beyond his fence. Well, he thought, I've got a new friend all right, but what a gamble friendship is. Charlotte is fierce, brutal, scheming, bloodthirsty, everything I don't like. How can I learn to love her, even though she is pretty and of course clever? Wilbur was merely suffering the doubts and fear that often go with finding a new friend. In good time, he was to discover that he was mistaken about Charlotte. Underneath her rather bold and cruel exterior, she had a kind heart, and she was to prove loyal and true to the very end. All right, boys and girls, that was the end of chapter 5. Hopefully you really liked it. We met a new character. The character's name is Charlotte, and we found out that that was the voice that Wilbur was hearing speak to him. So the next day when he woke up, he found out that it was her, that she was a spider and that she lived in the corner of his doorway. We also heard all of the juicy words that we reviewed before I started reading. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Make sure that you are writing down these juicy words and their meaning, as well as your summary. So I'm going to go over the words again. Clashers, stirred, weather vane, objectionable, meekly, blundered, and wits. And you can pause this video whenever you want to write down the definition, draw an illustration. Make sure that you're also writing a summary. This is chapter 5. You can see this is Wilbur, and you can see Charlotte in the doorway. So he finally gets to meet her. This is just a summary. I'll go ahead and read it to you. Your notebook should look something similar to this. Remember, you're repeating, you're retelling, you're writing your own summary about what happened in the beginning, middle, and end. This is an example, so please write your own. In chapter 5, Wilbur experiences a sleepless night. He goes in and out of his sleep thinking about the voice he heard that night before. Go to sleep, you'll see me in the morning. He was full of excitement and anticipation. Wilbur could not wait until the morning to meet his new friend. The morning arrived and Wilbur searched and searched for their friend. He went as far as making an announcement to the farm animals, but she never showed up. Later that evening, he heard her voice again, and he insisted she showed herself. The voice finally told Wilbur to look up to the top corner of the entrance of the farm. Wilbur was surprised to meet a spider. After talking, Wilbur discovers the ways the spider kills her prey in order to survive. This puts Wilbur in a situation where he has to decide whether he wants to continue this friendship or not. Goose, overhearing their conversation, chuckles to herself, stating, there are a lot of things Wilbur doesn't know about life. Goose knows quite well what happens to pigs around Christmas. Wilbur is unaware that they are plumping him, preparing him to be part of a delicious dinner. So that's just one summary. This is Miss Alonso's summary. Go ahead and write your own about what happened in the beginning, middle, and end of this chapter. Include some of the juicy words. She wrote them right here: clashers, stirred, weather vane, objectionable, meekly, blundered, and wits. Try to include those in your writing. Maybe draw an illustration like she did. And that's pretty much it. So hopefully you enjoy this chapter. Keep the lookout for chapter 6. I will not be reading it. I read every other 2. So if I read chapter 5, I'm reading chapter 8. So tomorrow will be Miss Alonso reading chapter 6, Miss Maldonado would read chapter 7, and I would read chapter 8. So make sure you're checking Parent Square, those messages, watching all of the videos. It's okay if you don't get to all of them in one day. You have all day to do it and all of the weekend, okay? So I hope to see you soon, and thank you for watching.